right now, we're just going to get started, I suppose.
Sounds good.
But let me just say two things that are very important before we close. One, in order to get all these cars in here in a short amount of time, we videotape so that we can just condense everything instead of moving cars in and out or switching around. And then the second thing, and probably the most important to a lot of you out there, is tonight we're going to give one lucky guy or gal a new OTC Genisys Touch with a value of over $4,000. We're very happy to do that, and Steve's going to be picking the winner on that. And right after we get done showing you how it functions on the cars, we're going to come back and give away that car, and we're going to take your questions that you can ask these two experts. So thank you for joining us. And now, David, if we couldn't go to the cars.
Our first vehicle is a 2005 Ford Focus with a 2-liter engine. The customer complains of a misfire, and it does have a very powerful misfire. My plan is to show you how to find the fault code, of course, but the main thing is to show you how to determine what cylinder is misfiring. As you know, Ford does not have misfire information in data stream, and you have to go to mode 6 to find that. So let's go ahead and set up. First, I'm going to go ahead and do my Bluetooth setup. I'll tap on the Bluetooth button, and we'll let it go find the VCI, and then we'll go ahead and connect to the VCI. My Bluetooth wizard has now found the VCI, so I'm going to go and tap on Select. And now it'll connect right to the Bluetooth. Now that I'm connected, I'm going to close out that menu. And let's go ahead and select our vehicle. To do that, I'll tap on Start New. And I'm going to go ahead and use Auto ID, because this car is equipped with Mode 9. Auto ID automatically goes out to the vehicle's controller, looks for Mode 9, which is the VIN number, and will enter the year, make, and model of that vehicle as well as the engine. It's now asking to make sure the engine's off, so I'll tap OK. And in a moment, it'll enter every qualifier, year, make, model, and engine size, and then it's going to ask me to select the controller. So I'm going to verify this is a 2005 Ford Focus ZX3 with a 2-liter, naturally aspirated VIN N. And in a moment, it's going to ask me for what controller I want. Because we're dealing with a misfire, I'm going to go to PCM to look at the fault codes first. I'll go to the OEM side. We'll tap on Engine. I'm going to tap on Manual Transmission. And now let's go ahead and see what kind of fault codes I have. I'm going to go read DTCs. And up come all my DTCs, and you'll notice that in a moment I'll see a fault code P0303 for cylinder 3 misfire. Now luckily, this particular misfire did set a fault code and told us what cylinder it is. But many times a Ford will not tell you. So later on I'm going to show you in mode 6 how I can determine what cylinder it is that is misfiring if I don't have a fault code. But I'm going to go see what kind of repair information I do have in my misfire. You'll notice the little square or bubble tells me I've got 16 bits of repair information available for this particular fault code. I'll tap on P0303. Up comes all my available repair information. I'll tap on Code Assist, and it tells me that I've got to replace the ignition coil, and it also could tell me that I possibly need a spark plug and a few other things. But let's go ahead and see what else is available for repair information. If you look in the lower box, you'll see it says Direct Hit has additional repair information in a little blue bubble. And here it says I've got 2 items. So I'm going to tap on Direct Hit. We'll go out to the Identifix website. It'll connect in one moment. And you'll notice that I have a whole host of information available. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on Hotline Archives. And there's a hotline archive that covers our fault code, P0303. I'll tap on that. And we're going to go ahead and see what kind of information it tells us. And again, it just confirms the exact same thing, that we may have to replace the coil. So I'm going to close out of my Identifix information, and let's go ahead and do some more testing. To do that, I'll tap on the X up here. I'll then hit Close. I'll then hit Done, and we're back at our diagnostic hub. One of the things that you have to do with Ford when I have a misfire, is that if I don't have a fault code, is try to find out what type of cylinder or what cylinder is actually misfiring. To do that, I actually have to go to mode 6. In order to go to mode 6, I need to go to global OBD2. But many people make one mistake. They go to global OBD2 at the initial turn on of the tool. That's not where I want to go. I first want to enter year, make, and model. So I want to enter 2005 Ford Focus 2-liter, which we already did by selecting Auto ID. So now all I have to do this time is now do a controller change. To do that, I'll go to the pull-up arrow. Up comes all my controllers. I'll go to global OBD2. In a moment, up will come our test line that's available for us, our diagnostic information. And now I'm going to tap on non-continuous mode 6. And it's going to ask me if I really want to run the test. I'm going to say OK. And in a moment comes up our mode 6 information. Now remember, I did have a fault code for a misfire for cylinder number 3, P0303. So what I'm going to do is you're going to see that it has 3 misfire monitors, mode 6 monitors that have failed. So we'll see that in a minute, and you'll see they'll be red marked failed. But we're going to scroll through, and we're going to look at a couple other cylinders to see if there any other cylinders may be at fault here as well. Because this car really did have a pretty powerful misfire. So you notice it says misfire monitor general data, and if you look all the way through, it tells you that they failed. And now it says down at the bottom, if I scroll just a little further up, it says misfire cylinder 3 type B failed. But I'm going to scroll a little bit more so you can see some other information. And you notice that mode 6 also has oxygen sensor. You'll see evap, quite a bit of stuff available, EGR. And we're going to keep going until we get to more misfire data. And we're going to come up in a moment, and I'm going to show you how you would look at a cylinder if I did not have a fault code. So let's talk about when I don't have a fault code. Let's say I have a Ford that has a misfire. I'm now looking at read DTCs, and I have no fault code to tell me what cylinder is at fault. I go to DataStream, there's no misfire data available in DataStream for Ford. All it's going to say is cylinder misfire, yes or no. That's any scan tool in the aftermarket. They're all the same. Many people will tell you that their scan tool can see DataStream with misfires, but they all say one thing. They all say misfire cylinder, yes or no. That's all it says. I don't know what cylinder is at fault. I got to go back to mode 6. And once again, to do that properly, I'll enter year, make, and model. In this case, I used Auto ID. It used mode 9 to select that vehicle for me. Now I go into global OBD2 after I selected year, make, and model. I'll then go to continuous monitors, mode 6. I'll scroll through until I find a cylinder that looks like I got a slight problem. If you look, now I'm looking at cylinder number 3. It says maximum available for the maximum amount of misfires that before setting a fault code that would occur is 65,000. You'll see that my measured value is 921. My maximum number, once again, is 65,000. If my maximum number is here and my measured value is just slightly below or somewhere below that number, yet it has never gone above the max number, I will not set a fault code. Yet that could be the cylinder that's misfiring because it's very close to the maximum number. If it went over, obviously like it did earlier in this particular car, it would have set a fault code and it would have marked it failed, which we did with the P0303. But in this case, in many cars, if I've got no fault code, I'm going to scroll through mode 6, looking at cylinders 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 8, and 9 and 10 if I got a 10-cylinder, and I'm going to look for what cylinder has the highest measured value closest to the maximum number. So once again, if my maximum number is 65,000 and I was sitting around 40,000 at measured value, that's my cylinder that's misfiring. Let's go ahead and do some additional testing. I'm going to go ahead and close out on this by tapping on Done. And I'm going to go back to my engine test, and I'm going to go ahead and do a relative compression test with this vehicle. Once again, it's a manual transmission. And we're ready to do some testing. Special test is where I'm going to go. And now when I tap on engine test under special tests, I've got 3 tests available. Some of the additional testing that can be used to help us find out what is causing this misfire are things such as relative compression test and power balance. In relative compression test, what I'm going to do is I'm going to physically crank the engine over for approximately 12 seconds, and we're going to see what the variation is from cylinder to cylinder of RPM. If it's at 0, then I've got a good running engine. But if I have negative numbers on one cylinder, I've got a cylinder that's got a compressions problem. It could be cam, it could be cam timing, it could be valving, it could be rings, whatever. And then you also have power balance. Power balance can be used in this tool as well. The power balance test will provide us the ability to look at what cylinders are at fault, what could be causing that failure, whether it be ignition, fuel, or compression. And then we're going to have the ability in the near video test that we're going to do later, our next webcast, is we can do an injector test, where I can actually run the engine and cut out each injector one by one. If I have a change in RPM, then I know my fuel injector is in good working order. But if I don't have a change in RPM, then I know that cylinder may have a fault with a fuel system, either injector or fuel rail or something along those lines. That'll help us eliminate what the causes are of our misfire. So in our next episode, look forward to some special testing to help you determine what your misfires are on a Ford.
Hello, I'm Jim Newkirk. I'm the Senior Audi Volkswagen Specialist here at Identifix. And today we're going to be looking at the new Genisys Touch. And we think that this is a tool that you're going to find to be very, very helpful in your day-to-day shop operations when diagnosing the vehicle, simply because of the fact that we now have the ability to do our diagnosis right at the fender with one tool, one-stop shopping, everything all at the same time. So we're going to take a look at this Volkswagen here. This happens to be a 2001 Volkswagen Jetta TDI, which is the diesel vehicle. And we're going to look at a couple of problems that are seen often on these vehicles that can be a little bit difficult to diagnose, and how you would utilize the Genisys Touch to perform that diagnosis right here at the fender. So we'll get started here and take a look and see what we're dealing with. Now, today, this particular vehicle was brought in because we have a lack of power situation going on the vehicle. Now, lack of power on a TDI can be caused by a number of different things. We could have problems with a mass airflow sensor. We could have problems with the ability of the vehicle to pull air in due to restriction in the intake manifold or exhaust. We could have issues with the EGR system. Many different things can cause a lack of power situation. And rather than taking the time to disassemble this vehicle and do a lot of inspections, we can very, very quickly go in and utilize the Genisys Touch to get at information not only on the vehicle itself, but also directly connecting to the direct hit information site. And that will give us the procedures necessary to go ahead and perform a diagnosis on this vehicle. So let's go ahead and start utilizing the tool here so we can see how easy it is to perform a diagnosis using the Genisys Touch. So here we are at the Genisys Touch, which I've already got hooked up to the vehicle. And if you take a look, you can see the screen here. We've got our various modes that we can select. We can, of course, enter a new vehicle. We can select OBD2 if we want to go in and just look at standard OBD2. We can go in and look at engine. We can look at data stream, all of the different functions that you're going to need to go ahead and proceed with a diagnosis. So in this particular case, we're dealing with a lack of power situation on this TDI. So what we're going to want to do is, first and foremost, we're going to want to go ahead and see if there are any trouble codes or DTCs listed in the vehicle that may actually pertain to our lack of power situation. For instance, as I mentioned before, we've got a situation where you have a problem with a mass airflow sensor. That could set a code P0102. So we're going to want to know that ahead of time. So we're going to go ahead and choose to go after trouble code. So I'm going to go ahead and select here, read DTCs. And the system now is going to go ahead and it's going to read the diagnostic trouble code memory to see if we do actually have anything stored currently in the system. And as a matter of fact, in this case, we do. We've got a trouble code of 19561. Now, if we don't know what that trouble code means in specific, what we can do here is we can actually go ahead now and go in and access additional information to help us diagnose this particular trouble code. So let's go ahead and look at the type of information that we can go ahead and access here.